This video is sponsored by War Thunder.
Let me guess. Your home?
It was. And it was beautiful.
To quote the immortal words of Panic at the Disco, if you love me, let me go. But what if you love something strongly enough that you just couldn't? What happens then? Well, besides a restraining order, history shows us a myriad of ways to hold on to that in which we love. From one emperor constructing a tomb to honor his late wife for generations, to more modern examples. We as humans like to hold on to what gives our lives joy, even if it's just a little bit. And history tends to repeat itself. In the world of video games, this love is stronger than it has any right to be. Many of these games are nothing more than products. The characters, stories, choices that the player makes are not real. And yet the attachment and love we feel for these games very much is.
Your feelings for her are not real. They are real to me!
It's this love that has motivated a select few of the world's most loyal fans to go above and beyond the call of duty. From the enjoyers all the way to the most strong-willed of devout fans. From players with only a couple thousand hours, nothing, to those that played for literal months on end. Today we're going to see just how far love for a game can take you as we explore the Gaming Holdouts. There are levels to how dedicated one can be to a video game, and with that metaphorical background in mind, I've categorized our stories into a completely original and not derivative at all framework. Dante's A Default's Inferno. Like Dante, we're going to journey down to the levels of heck until we reach our final destination. I must warn you, with each new level comes more hardship and suffering that these brave and dedicated souls had to endure. Why don't we start with acceptance. It's here that you'll find gamers who put up with a crappy situation and made the best of it, regardless of what cards the world had dealt them.
Country road.
It's safe to say that the launch of Fallout 76 was not good. Game-breaking bugs, servers crashing, no NPCs, broken settlements, poor PR responses, asbestos inhalers. It all coalesced into a nightmare of a game that permanently tarnished Bethesda's reputation for years.
And we got a lot of well-deserved criticism.
I mean, the game was so bad the guy on the cover couldn't even look us in the eye. He knew. The game sucked and it deserved to be buried in a nylon bag coffin. Good riddance, you filthy animal. Pathetic. After an appalling release, player count and viewership dwindled over time. The game was ostensibly abandoned as Fallout fans went back to doing what they did best. Hating each other. For most of the world, Fallout 76's story ended here. But not for everyone. We all know the story of 76, but many of us might not know the story of what I like to call the parents of 76. Two players that through sheer passion for the game helped lead the community. Legendary figures. Simply seeing these characters in game is enough to incite numerous Reddit threads teeming with excitement. This is Mr. West Tech. He's been playing Fallout 76 for a long time. A really long time. There was something about the mountains of West Virginia that just resonated with him. From the moment he stepped out of the vault, it just clicked. He would create a character, level up that character to triple digits, then do it again, and again, and again. Mr. West Tech soon amassed an intimate knowledge of the game and shared it with the other vault dwellers of West Virginia, seeking to guide them in their own journeys.
Customization, he's tenderizing the ground! Write that down, write that down!
What's far more admirable though is that he stuck with the game since 2018. Imagine looking at Fallout 76 in 2018 when the entire online discourse was,
and all that's left is a buggy mess.
Don't play this game.
An inconsequential wasteland.
Fallout 76 is an atrocious video game.
Where this online mob would dissuade most of the world, Mr. Westek just tuned it all out and said, well, I still like it. To this day, his channel is consistently uploading Fallout 76 content. Leveling guides, item locations, character builds. He's been uploading all of this content for years because he wanted to show the world that in spite of a poor release and the negative stigma, there's still a great game here. You just had to give it a shot. But behind every great man, there is a Mrs. Blobby. Because Mrs. Blobby is not your ordinary Fallout 76 player. Mrs. Blobby doesn't just play Fallout 76. They dominate it. For the casual Fallout 76 player, it can take a long time to reach a character level in the mid to high triple digits. Getting higher than a triple digit level or even seeing someone in the wild with one is enough to turn some heads. Mrs. Blobby is level 10,000 on their alternate account. Their main account level is 32,767, the maximum level that a character can achieve in Fallout 76. Mrs. Blobby has essentially beat Fallout 76, if that was even possible. As crazy as a level that high sounds, it's not impressive in the eyes of some. There were various experience exploits in the early days that were eventually patched out, but before they were, players could reap massive rewards and essentially level up with minimal effort. However, what makes Mrs. Blobby unique is that they achieved this rank not from a lucky glitch or two, but through good old-fashioned grinding. Not like that. Mrs. Blobby has a YouTube channel where they run through experience farming routes for literal hours at a time. Over 100 videos, most of which are just a little shorter than a Christopher Nolan movie. There is not a single video of theirs at the time of writing this that is under 1 hour, and one of the only ones that are 5 and 2 minutes off, respectively. Think about that for a second. The shortest documented run of Mrs. Blobby repeating this grind is 55 minutes. 55 minutes of shooting the same enemies, 55 minutes of the same locations, 55 minutes of the same loading screens, and that is the shortest run they've documented on their alternate account. These videos are severely underrated in their view count, so there's not even an argument to be made that this is being done for financial reasons. No, this is simply a love for the game. Players like Mrs. Blobby and Mr. Westek have done nothing but invigorate the Fallout 76 community, a community that was in dire straits in the early years. The routes and guides they pioneered paved the way for other players to level their character, not to mention their work with the community outside of the game itself. Hearing stories of a mysterious max level player joining your squad motivated a lot of people to keep playing. Maybe if I play a little bit longer, I'll run into Mrs. Blobby or Mr. Westek, or maybe I'll try this farming route they made to finally whoop that piece of shit Wendigo's ass. It's the same mentality behind putting down a summon sign and hoping that Let Me Solo Her appears. Yes, Jarman, kill her. Kill her. Kill her!
You destroyed that guy without even touching him.
It's players like Mrs. Blobby and Mr. Westek that can keep a game alive. And in all honesty, it's their stories that inspired me to give Fallout 76 another shot years later. And somehow, this is only our first level. Because what if just sticking with Fallout 76 in its current state wasn't enough? What if these players took matters into their own hands? But first...
Ramirez! Where are you, Private? We need backup! Ramirez? Sorry, Sarge, I can't fight right now. I'm too busy playing War Thunder.
This video is sponsored by War Thunder. I'm just as surprised as you guys are. War Thunder is the largest and most comprehensive vehicle combat game out there. Sounds expensive? Well, don't you worry. War Thunder is free to play on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. With over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships, there's no shortage of what vehicles you can Tokyo drift on the battlefield. Feeling nostalgic? Then try the biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s to make you feel young again. Feeling more modern? Try flying the fighter jets of today. Feeling a little naughty? Then use the damage X-ray view. That gives you an in-depth visual analysis of the damage sustained on any vehicle. As a cheesecake with a passion for history, my favorite feature is the level of in-depth customization available for your vehicles. And this ain't no Weenie Hut Jr. customization. You can outfit your vehicle with historically accurate markers to provide a more authentic experience. I mean, for me, I love that level of detail in my games. That's pretty cool. Get ready to lose yourself on the battlefields of War Thunder, where you will have the ability to control history's most powerful machines ever created in intense combat. Use my link in the pinned comment or video description to sign up now. New players and those that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack on PC or consoles. It includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator, Eagle of Valor, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of the premium account. But it's only available for a limited time, so don't miss out. Folks, join the massive War Thunder community of over 70 million players already on the battlefield. If you're a fan of vehicular combat, military history, or just fun games to sink hours into, then look no further than War Thunder. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to it. Bargaining. Now we're starting to get our first real taste of the madness. In this level, we'll see communities and players not simply accept whatever bad odds they've been dealt like our other examples, but attempt to completely reshape their game altogether. Super Smash Bros. Melee was never meant to survive. At its core, the Smash Bros. Franchise was Nintendo's fever dream. The idea of watching a monkey brutalize a child wasn't a stale meme yet, so to actually play it out was a novel concept for Nintendo. The original Smash Bros. For the N64 was bare bones in terms of its technical ceiling, but the groundwork for a more complex experience was there. And soon after the original, the big brother, Melee hits the GameCube. The fans of the original could not have loved it more. The teaser trailer alone nearly broke the convention center's foundation. But when fans actually got to play it, Melee was an improvement from its predecessor in virtually every way. More characters, better graphics, more stages, but most importantly, better gameplay. Because of Melee's hectic development lifecycle, HAL Laboratories took a page out of Todd Howard's book, and a lot of those unintended coding errors now became unintended coding features. Oversights, I mean features like Fox's Shine, wave dashing, moonwalking, Fox's Shine, Bowser not switching hands, the ice climbers can pummel you for as long as they want, Fox's Shine, and even Fox's Shine. The skill ceiling for Smash Bros. Melee had suddenly gone from this dick move to competitive carpal tunnel. That's not even a joke, I wish I was kidding.
I felt an explosion. I felt like literally an explosion in my hand.
Melee's competitive scene steadily grew in the years following its release, because Melee felt different. The game was fun to play competitively, and for the audience, it was just as fun to watch. For a brief few years, it felt like Melee, this lightning in a bottle, could be the endgame for Smash. There's a strong norm in the fighting game community. It's expected that when the next installment of a series releases, everyone moves on from the previous game, like the Smash community just did when Melee came out. Which makes sense. You want to play the most updated game, especially if there's anything inherently unbalanced. Alright, the Smash community said, let's give Smash Bros. Brawl a shot. What fans of competitive Melee thought was going to be an improvement ended up retroactively fixing everything that made Melee, well, arthritis. And this was no accident. It was entirely intentional on Nintendo's end, as they wanted to make Smash Bros. Brawl less sweaty and more goofy fun times confetti. The Melee players that did move on to Brawl had two options: continue to play, or pave their own way. And both of these options assembled some of the most driven gaming holdouts thus far. Those that chose to pave their own way simply wouldn't play a different game. They would make it. Because the weird thing about the Smash Bros. Community is that they don't hate Brawl for being Brawl. They hate it for not being Melee. Because let's be real, Brawl on its own is still a fun game, with tons to offer. It just wasn't Melee. However, through top secret experimentation, it could be. This mentality led to a fan-made creation called Project M. Project M was gonna fix it all. If Nintendo wouldn't make Brawl like Melee, then the fans would do it themselves. A small enclave of talented and devoted fans spend years completely reshaping Brawl in the competitive player's image. Wave dashing is back. Roy is back. Mewtwo is back. And he's got the costume from the first Pokemon movie, which should be legally required to be in any Pokemon media. Stages are reworked and actually work. Norfair used to be completely unfair, but now it's more fair. Annenbo is still here, unfortunately. As work continued for Project M, the lines between developer and fan blurred as more money came from their pockets and more of their free time funneled into development. Thousands of hours and dollars for a project that would not make them a single penny in sales. But their devotion paid off. For a time, Project M enjoyed a healthy competitive scene, and even though it was eventually phased out, it's still a beloved topic for the Smash community. And Project M was just option one. Those that continued to play Melee did just that for years. Even though there was a brand new game that most communities would have moved on to long ago, the Melee players stuck with what they loved. After Brawl, Melee tournaments went from this to this. But it didn't matter. They just kept playing. What's that? Brawl's having a bigger crowd draw? Doesn't matter. Keep playing Melee. The guys in your dorm don't want to play Melee because the GameCube controller doesn't scream when you choose Captain Falcon? Doesn't matter. Keep playing Melee. These players kept a game alive far longer than anyone thought was possible. In the face of time, technical improvements, and even the creators of the game against them, the Melee community has held on to this day. Not too bad for a fun party game.
Champion Mango, first place here at Evolution. And Mango wins. Armada is your Melee champion.
The Smash community had to forge their own way without the help of Nintendo for a long time. Suppose what would happen then if the company actually listened to the community. Just hearing these notes probably hit you with a wave of nostalgia, back to a simpler time. Why, it harkens me back to some of my fondest internet memories as a kid, pretending to be a girl so someone could trade me free rune armor. Is that unethical for a child? Probably, but I can't use through my rune helmet. If you never played Runescape, it was essentially the PBS of MMOs, meaning it was easily accessible and free to most of the general public. If you had a computer with the internet, you could play Runescape, thus its massive popularity. For many players, Runescape was a great escape to ignore life's problems. School, work, taxes, your marriage. Throughout the 2000s and early 2010s, Gielinor thrived. But everything changed when the evolution of combat attacked. The evolution of combat. Perhaps the embodiment of this Ned Flanders quote.
But we can't blame you because you have good intentions.
The developers of RuneScape, Jagex, wanted to modernize the RuneScape experience to keep the player count alive and appeal to a younger audience. They did not. Their solution was a massive update called the Evolution of Combat. It took everything that old school RuneScape players loved about the original experience and flipped it on its rune helmet shaped head. The graphics went from lovably low poly to we have World at Warcraft at home. Combat was completely overhauled, stats were changed, and the fans were not happy. Petitions make their rounds demanding Jagex add the old servers. The community makes polls asking if they support the update, and over half the player base says,
"No thank you."
Jagex now has a decision to make, eerily reminiscent of Nintendo's conundrum. Do we stick by our new product that's strongly disliked, or do we stay with an admittedly outdated one? History could repeat itself once again. Fortunately for the employees at Jagex, it's a decision they would not have to make, because Jagex found the best of both worlds. Introducing Old School RuneScape, an authentic experience to bring you back to the good old days of catfishing and bank fraud. We've kept everything just like it was back in the 2000s. Remember this? It's still there. Don't worry, Zoomers. If the game is too slow, then you can always play our fancy new version. Jagex had struck a balance and given players the freedom to choose which version of RuneScape they wanted to play. Not to say their track record is perfect, but in a moment like this, it was an admirable decision indeed. And yet at the heart of this entire conundrum lies one of RuneScape's greatest holdouts.
In search of a new challenge, perhaps. Always waiting for more challenges.
Wook started playing RuneScape back in 2006, and over the years he's amassed over 29,000 combined hours of playtime across all versions of RuneScape. But Wook's had a soft spot for old school RuneScape. and he completely reshaped it. Woox became one of the first players to solo bosses, a feat the RuneScape community thought was impossible. Until he recorded it. Twice. Thrice. 5 times, 20 times. Not only did he pioneer how to play RuneScape, but how to engage with it too. Uploading actual helpful footage of gameplay back in 2009 was already rare enough because the standard of quality for gaming videos in 2009 was, "Alright guys, today we're gonna figure out how to leave the vault in Fallout 3. Make sure to subscribe." His accolades in RuneScape were truly godlike. He became so revered by the community that an entire technique was named after him. The Woox Walk.
Well, good thing I know how to Woox walk.
Even after Jagex introduced the evolution of combat, Woox just stuck with the old version mostly. For Woox, there was just more to love in the version that he grew up with. That love for the game would take him far. Far enough to step on stage to receive personal recognition from Jagex. A recognition that, in a literal sense, was a cape for being the first person to beat a toughest challenge, but I think in a more figurative sense, this was Jagex thanking Woox for loving the game as much as he had.
Woox, my friend, has to choose between 2 guilds. What would I do? I would probably ditch both of them and play RuneScape instead.
Unfortunately though, as life marches on, our interests can change. Today, Woox's interest in old-school RuneScape has naturally faded, leading him to gradually pursue other endeavors in life. While Woox had the luxury to ease off the game over many years, one game that was not so lucky was Overwatch. Before Overwatch 2 kept us from watching, and before Overwatch became Overwatch, there was a game called Overwatch. The original Overwatch was simple old-fashioned fun, except Overwatch would not be so fortunate. With the announcement of Overwatch 2 also came the revelation that the original Overwatch servers would be gone forever. Despite fan outcry, Blizzard was adamant on their decision. The last Overwatch players gathered in their lobbies to say goodbye. When the clock struck midnight, everyone was booted offline and Overwatch 1 was no more. But what could happen if Blizzard didn't boot these players in their lobbies? What might happen if these players could keep playing? Denial, the deepest depths of devotion. These are gamers in the face of certain defeat with no possible road to victory. Their only outcome was to quit, but these brave souls folded their arms defiantly, and they said, "Make me." In the late 1990s, Microsoft was looking to compete with Sony and Nintendo in the console market. Their solution was to strip down a PC and shove it into a box. An X-shaped box. So they called it Game Pass. The Xbox was announced in 2001 by perhaps the biggest disparity in size between two human beings. A year later, Billy G announces Xbox Live, an entirely online service that will let you game with your buddies from around the world. Finally, Xbox players wouldn't have to spend their rent money just to play with each other.
There were people willing to spend next month's rent to fly across the country to play in a game at my house.
The first Xbox Live player names their account E. That will have literally no bearing on the story, I just thought it was funny. Suffice to say, the original Xbox Live was a special time. MechAssault, Unreal Championship, Battlefront, Halo, it was glorious. It was becoming obsolete. With the advent of the Xbox 360, Bill Gates saw it fit to pull the plug on the original Xbox Live. Attention consumers, valued customers. We will be shutting down the original Xbox Live servers on April 15th. At midnight. Thank you for choosing Microsoft. How could Microsoft do this? The Xbox fans cried. My precious copy of Shrek Super Slam. Defunct! Thousands rushed to the Xbox Live servers for one last ride.
Watch those wrist rockets!
I will watch those wrist rockets. I'll watch them. Everyone waited for the inevitable disconnection at midnight.
それはやらなければなりません。やれ。
I'm still here? I'm alive! Unlike Blizzard that just kicked everyone out immediately, Microsoft had left a back door open. The shutdown had merely blocked your ability to rejoin a match, which for most of the world is what happened. Except if you were still online at the time of the shutdown, you could keep playing. As long as you didn't disconnect or turn off your Xbox, you could keep playing. Yes, I'm gonna play Halo forever! This gift that Bill Gates had bestowed came with a price, as if our wish of eternal gaming was granted by the furling of the monkey's paw. Theoretically, you could keep playing Xbox Live forever, but you would need two things to survive: a lot of luck, and even more willpower. With the realization that you could stay online only by keeping your Xbox on, most people that were left gave up pretty much immediately. Games like Burnout 3, Conquer Live and Reloaded, Battlefront 1, their servers became ghost towns, and the rest of Xbox Live was soon to follow. Except for one group of holdouts, still playing Halo 2 for days on end. Weeks after the Xbox Live servers shut down, 14 players were still online. Somehow, they had not disconnected or turned off their Xboxes in weeks.
Master Chief, you mind telling me how you've been playing Halo 2 non-stop for the past 2 weeks?
Sir.
Unemployment.
The Halo community knights them the Noble 14, the final Halo 2 players. In the face of what was thought to be an impossible task, 14 Spartans had proved the world otherwise. Even though we know it was futile, for some reason, their story gave us hope. Except hope can only take you so far. Remember, this is a challenge that requires two things: willpower and luck. And the Noble 14's luck had just run out. Several Spartans lose connection to power outages, and they're booted off. A cruel fate. Others have their internet connection dropped unexpectedly, a predictable fate if you have Cox. Another Spartan's Xbox starts borderline combusting, so he's forced to tap out, but they let him play Halo Reach early, so that's cool. The days march on. Only two remained: Agent Windex and Apache Enforcer.
They let me pick. Did I ever tell you that? Choose whichever Spartan I wanted. Like the others, you were strong and swift and brave. But you had something they didn't. Something no one saw but me. Can you guess? Luck.
Agent Windex's internet had disconnected, leaving Apache Enforcer as the last Xbox Live player. He stayed online for almost a month straight, leaving his mark on history as one of the greatest gaming holdouts of all time. Or so I thought. The Noble 14, while admirable in their efforts, are not the most dedicated I've seen, because that title is left for only a handful of people in the entire world. A handful of people that chose to repeat history once again. Only this time, they'd have the technology to last forever. Nintendo drops the Wii U and 3DS. These consoles were designed to be improvements over their predecessors, HD Miis. I mean, what more could you ask for? Nintendo called this one the Wii U because you were probably the only one that bought one, and the 3DS because, good lord, this thing originally cost the price of 3DSs. That's not to say they didn't have their fans though, as we will see soon enough. Eventually though, Nintendo had seen their future, and they wanted to move on from their past. But oopsie daisy, Nintendo had online services for the Wii U and 3DS called the Nintendo Network. Since the Switch's online service had been thriving for years, Nintendo was ready to axe the old version.
Assemble all aircraft immediately. Goodbye.
Panic engulfed the Nintendo community. Everyone got their final games in. In the face of certain destruction, a brief glimpse of humanity shines. One of the last recorded 4 glory matches on Smash for the 3DS are 2 Kirbys on Final Destination, just sitting there, refusing to fight, choosing to embrace in this moment of existential crisis. They're dubbed the Kirbys at the end of it all. Play that match of bowling, drift round them corners, this is it everyone. You'll always be my brother. It happened again. Whether it was intentional or not, Nintendo had laid the foundation for another Noble 14. This time, things would be different. There wouldn't just be one single game these holdouts would stick with. This would be an entire community that would survive. And with hardware stronger than the original Xbox, the Skyward Sword was the limit. Not much is known after the initial blast of the Nintendo network nuking. Information was a rare commodity, and finding other survivors was even more rare. The only thing we knew for sure is that those still online at the time of the shutdown were still alive. The remaining survivors huddled around whatever warmth they could find, looked to the sky, and thanked the big man up above. As the radiation pockets cleared, small tribes carved out a meager existence. The first signs of life came from a group of 5 Pokemon players that were still online. They were all that remained in the now desolate landscape that once was the Nintendo network. And just what were these Pokemon players doing after the shutdown? Well, probably what you did back in the day. Catching Pokemon, playing online, making their 3DS pull back-to-back all-nighters to fuel the crippling addiction to catch them all. Normal Pokemon stuff, really. In a stroke of brilliance, one of these Pokemon players lights off a flare to the world. By that I mean a tweet goes live announcing that they were still online. Where the Halo 2 numbers dwindled by this point, the Nintendo Network survivors were somehow, against all odds, growing. After this tweet, more destitute survivors joined the cause. Refugees from Mario Kart, Splatoon, Mario Maker emerge. Still shell-shocked from the shutdown, but very much connected. One Smash 3DS player, Chario, had been wandering the waste by himself for days looking for a match, waiting for anyone to connect with. His patience had paid off, and he found an anonymous player, but still online nonetheless, as if the Kirbys at the end of it all had found each other in another life. Other survivors were not so fortunate. At least with a single-player game like Pokemon, you can kinda understand how someone could play by themselves for a long time. But just what do you do if you're stuck in an online multiplayer game like Splatoon? Well, you do things like sit in the lobby by yourself for hours, shop for cosmetics that unfortunately no one will ever get to see again, bowl in a loading screen endlessly. Mario Kart 8 players like D2 and Cyndaquil were stuck racing the same people until the end of time. Some survivors on Minecraft had their lobby attacked by raiders using hacks to forcefully boot everyone from the lobby. While all these hardships might sound agonizing for some, these survivors didn't care. They had a mission, and now they had a community. Their resolve was inspiring to say the least. News outlets wrote about them, only boosting their cause. These survivors were pulling another Noble 14. And it seemed at this rate they could actually beat them. Yet, time was here to collect its payment. It had been over a week since the Nintendo Network shutdown. What seemed to be a strong community in the beginning started to show its cracks, and slowly the casualties rose. Panic sowed the seeds of unease amongst the survivors. Who would disconnect next? Could it be me? The last Smash 3DS player's tale ended in heartbreak, with Chario's nameless partner quietly logging off, leaving him as the final Smash 3DS player in the world. Dang, I'm really the last one now. By now, few of these games resembled what they once were. Mario Kart 7 was down to 2 players. Mario is Cool 246 and Fish Guy 6564. In order to stay online, they had created a patch that circumvented the shutdown order and populated the matches with bots to endlessly race. 2 puppet masters, locked in an eternal struggle. Mario Kart 8 still had humans playing, but it was down to the last 3. And after some internet troubles, all that remained was 1 player, left to select the next match for eternity by himself. Even though the world was now cheering them on, these players were not immune to the RNG of the world. Like their family closing their 3DS by accident. That was real, by the way. Soon the once vibrant community had whittled down to single digits. On May 3rd, 2024, history was simultaneously made, and again repeated. 14 years after the Noble 14 of Halo 2, in the exact same month, 8 people managed to do the impossible. These 8 players beat Apache Enforcer's 2010 record by remaining on the Nintendo Network for over 25 days after it was shut down. To make it this far required a dedicated crew. And the final 8 players were an eclectic crew to say the least. There's the aforementioned Mario Kart 7 pair, the brains behind the Mario Kart bot brawl operation. Slithery Sheep, the last Mario Maker player. Folks say he stomped more Koopas than anyone else. Amanda, the Pokemon matriarch. LCD 101, the Splatoon lone wolf. And the final Xenoblade Chronicles X squad, Gora and Ecruteak, led by their fearless leader, Tsuwaite. Together, these 8 defied all odds, and they were ready to hold out forever. If only their consoles could say the same. Amanda, who was one of the original 5 Pokemon survivors, saw the writing on the wall. Upon hearing that she was the last Pokemon player left, she somberly walked to the scary house on Route 14. Because of its minimal lighting and atmosphere, it thematically coincided with her own feelings, but more practically it would keep her 3DS from exploding. After a multi-week battle to stay online, she decides to log off, marking the end of Pokemon X and Y, her final thoughts memorialized in a heartfelt goodbye. The Xenoblade Squad story came to a bittersweet end. Tsuwaite was the last tank in Xenoblade Chronicles X after the shutdown. The tank is typically a less popular choice for players, but it's essential for completing online missions. Upon seeing players still alive after the shutdown, Tsuwaite found a new purpose in their twilight years: to help them experience one last mission. Tsuwaite helped all the players they could finish missions that would be impossible to beat once they disconnected. And in that sense, they succeeded. Yet, they couldn't beat time. Gora and Ecruteak disconnected soon after Apache Enforcer's record was beat, and now, Tsuwaite was all alone. A veteran of a battle no one could remember. A leader with no followers. Tsuwaite found a final resting spot, and waited for the inevitable.
Bruh.
Mario is Cool 246's battle concludes abruptly. The bot races with Fish Guy had come to an end, with Mario's 3DS freezing after running for over a month straight. The final image Mario is Cool could see was a Shy Guy, arms outstretched, ascending into the heavens. After 13,000 races, the final statistics were Fish Guy at 6,495 wins, and Mario is Cool with 6,656. Fish Guy may have lost the battle, but he won the war. At what price, though? We were truly in the endgame now. The Nintendo holdouts were down to the final 3. 3 titans clashing for a doomed spot in a world of inevitable destruction. Nintendo, if you ever want to make Dark Souls, just copy this because I'm spitting some heat. These were not your ordinary holdouts. These were the best of the best. For example, Slithery Sheep, the Mario Maker master, initially survived the shutdown by having 3 Wii U's running simultaneously. One ran Mario Maker while the other 2 ran Mario Kart and Minecraft. Even though Slithery Sheep tried to better their odds of survival, the world was not such a welcoming place. As previously mentioned, one of the Wii U's connected to Minecraft was forcefully booted by hackers. Well, at least they had another backup Wii U running Mario Kart. Slithery Sheep's final hope was Mario Maker, and after thousands of hours running Mario Maker non-stop, I'm sure Mario wanted to make it all end. Slithery Sheep couldn't play new levels, couldn't play event courses, look at their uploads, pretty much do anything. The only thing left Slithery Sheep could do to stay online was remain on this screen. Riveting stuff. As for LCD 101, he had his own preparations in mind. Prior to the shutdown, LCD 101 put all his Splatoon game files onto his Steam Deck and using a Wii U emulator was able to get a working connection. Other players were able to stay online using a Wii U, so it's not like this was only possible on an emulator. But at this point, it didn't really matter what console he was using. He was still connected, and all he could do was wait in his lobby. Lastly, Fish Guy 6564. The deserted drifter of Mario Kart 7. Without Mario is Cool, Fish Guy only had bots left to watch over, racing them endlessly, having to lap the soulless husks of what once represented a real human, now reduced to mindless drones with only the instinct to drive. And throw blue shells. Fuck you, Queen Bee. LCD 101 disconnected accidentally after he moved out. He managed to hold on for 68 days after the shutdown. The final screen the world could see of Splatoon 1's multiplayer was Krusty Sean telling your internet to get good. 2 remained, an Agent Windex and an Apache Enforcer for the modern era. And at the time of recording this sentence, these 2 are still online. Even if they were to disconnect tomorrow, at the very least they managed to last 92 days after the shutdown. A feat that, regardless of who is the last one standing, qualifies them both as some of the greatest gaming holdouts of all time. I was lucky enough to interview Slithery Sheep while they were still connected to the Nintendo network. I asked them a question that I think anyone watching this would want to know. Why did you do it? And this was Slithery Sheep's answer to the world. Because I love Mario Maker. That's hard as f***, goddamn. It's such a simple question, isn't it? Why do it? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, why waste your time on something as trivial as being the last player of a defunct online service? There's more value to these stories than you might think, though. It can capture a moment in time that, however brief or seemingly insignificant, could never be seen again. Like LCD 101, who was the only person left to see the last Splatoon map rotation, a piece of media that, had he not recorded it, would have been lost to time. Or Tiswaite helping their team grind out the final Xenoblade missions that'd be impossible to complete otherwise. But more importantly, my response to this point is why not? Why not hold on to something that gives you a little happiness? Think about how much devotion for a single game one has to have to sink thousands of hours into it, or create entirely new content, or keep playing long after the finish line. Let's be real, if someone told me I couldn't play Fallout 3 anymore, I'd probably hunker down for months too. It's our devotion for these games that can make them more than just a product, but something meaningful. Because after all, why do you play video games in the first place? This video was a giant project, and I would like to thank several people for making it possible. First, of course, thank you again to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to check out War Thunder now for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox, and use the link in my pinned comment or video description to register. Those of you that are new or haven't played for 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms, including multiple premium vehicles, in-game currency, and more. It's pretty cool. I would also like to give a massive thank you to everyone that was willing to interview with me. Your insight was invaluable to the making of this video. I'll put links to their socials and other accounts in the description, but I also want to give them actual shoutouts. So thank you again to Wooks, Mr. Westtech, Amanda, Chario, LCD 101, Slithery Sheep, Deb/D2, SMF2, Mike, Tiswaite, and the Nintendo Network After Hours Discord for compiling a lot of that post-shutdown media. So thank you everyone that I just mentioned for speaking with me. I truly do appreciate it. Anyway, thank you guys for making it this far. If you have, I really appreciate y'all watching. At the time of me posting this video, it's been about a year since I started this channel, and the growth I've seen has been tremendous. So thank you guys so much. It means the world. Okay, I'm going to go keep my PS3 on until 2031, so I'll catch you guys in the next one.